Well, hello and welcome to India Business Hour. I'm Ashmit Kumar, and here are the headlines that we're tracking at this hour. Bank stocks tumble. Is personal loans expected to get costlier? Volume likely to take a hit as RBI slams brakes on the fast-growing unsecured personal loan segment. Banks and NBFCs will have to keep more capital aside for provisioning against these loans. Sensex and Nifty end the week with gains of over 1% despite a minor decline on Friday. Crude oil prices attempt to recover after hitting 4-month lows. Brent crude remains below $80 a barrel. It's been 6 days, but no luck yet to bring back the 40 construction workers trapped inside Uttarkashi tunnel. Construction officials say another drilling machine is being airlifted from Indore to get to the workers as soon as possible. The Punjab and Haryana High Court strikes down Haryana government's law mandating 75% job reservation in the private sector. Court terms the law unconstitutional. Haryana government likely to move the Supreme Court. Communication systems down for a second day in Gaza, hampering delivery of essential supplies. United Nations warns of possibility of starvation in Gaza. Reports say that the Israeli army conducted searches inside the Al-Shifa hospital for traces of a Hamas command center. The army also reportedly raided a refugee camp in the West Bank. All 230 assembly seats in Madhya Pradesh go to polls in a two-way battle between the BJP and the Congress. Over 2,500 candidates are in the fray. Polling also takes place for the remaining 70 seats in Chhattisgarh. Over 950 candidates are vying to enter the assembly. Both states approximately see 70% polling till 5 p.m. India calls for peace as the battle between Myanmar's army and a pro-democracy militia continues to rage near the Mizoram border. Reports suggest about 60 Myanmar army soldiers have fled to India as rebels gain ground. Over 5,000 Myanmar nationals have sought refuge in India so far. A closing ceremony with pop star Dua Lipa and an aerobatic show by the Indian Air Force await cricket fans as India take on Australia in the World Cup final this Sunday. Advertisement rates for television being quoted as 25 to 35 lakh rupees for a 10-second slot, according to industry sources. Well, let's start with the day's market action. The market snapped a two-day winning partnership to close lower in trade. However, it was the best week for the markets in 2 months' time. Banks and NBFC were bowled out after the RBI delivered a yorker, tightening rules on personal loans. Mid-caps managed to stay unbeaten, ending marginally in the green. But as we were saying, shares of banks and NBFCs tumbled in trade after the RBI tightened rules on personal loans. Now, the Nifty Bank Index was down over 500 points. The decline was across the board, with the SBI, Axis Bank, RBL Bank, all seeing sharp losses in trade. Essentially, banks and NBFCs will now have to set higher capital buffers against the loans that they sanction. NBFC stocks were not spared either. SBI Card, Bajaj Finance, Cholamandalam, Shriram Finance all declining in trade. RBI has repeatedly warned about the rise in unsecured lending, and the move is aimed at curbing the sharp growth in riskier lending products. Abhishek Kothari is here to explain the impact of India's finance industry.
Well, let's dive deeper into the new rules from RBI and how it will impact the lenders. So banks with high unsecured book is RBL Bank, IDFC First Bank and ICICI Bank. Banks with low unsecured book is PNB, Equitas Small Finance Bank and Kotak Mahindra Bank. NBFCs with high unsecured book is SBI Cards, 100% credit cards over there, Aditya Birla Capital and Sundaram Finance. NBFCs with low unsecured book is IIFL Finance, L&T Finance, etc. Now, analysts have given an estimate with respect to impact impact on capital adequacy ratio of the lenders. For SBI card, CLSA estimates a 415 basis point decline in their capital adequacy ratio. Axis Capital estimates a 416 basis point decline, and BofA Securities estimates a 466 basis point decline. For Bajaj Finance, Citi expects more than 190 basis point decline. CLSA estimates a 230 basis point decline, and Axis Capital estimates 240 basis point decline in their capital adequacy ratio. Amongst other NBFCs, for Piramal Enterprise, Citi estimates more than 100 basis point decline in the capital adequacy ratio. For L&T Finance, Citi estimates a decline of 55 basis point. For Shriram Finance and Cholamandalam Finance, Citi estimates a decline of anywhere between 20 to 30 basis point. Amongst banks, for SDFC Bank, Axis Bank, Bank of Baroda, as well as Federal Bank, Citi estimates a decline to be anywhere between 40 to 50 basis point. For SBI, PNB, AU Small Finance Bank, Citi estimates a decline to be about 30 basis point. RBL Bank, ICICI Bank, Kotak Bank, as well as Industrial Bank, Citi estimates the decline to be less than 25 basis point. Amongst fintech, CLSA suggests observing the impact on the growth of fintech intermediaries like Paytm, with the expectation that it won't be a large impact coming out from this rule of RBI. So, statement coming in from banks is that ICICI Bank in their Q2 FY24 con call did mention that for personal loans, they will continue to monitor the portfolio and take loans that meet their credit filters in terms of customer segments that they are comfortable with. Axis Bank, in an interview to CNBC-TV18, has stated that the RBI has cautioned about personal loans and they are not taking any additional risk, but closely watching their portfolio. So these changes and estimates suggest a potential impact on the financial positions of banks, NBFCs and fintech companies, influencing their capital adequacy ratio and the risk profiles. It also reflects the regulatory's effort in terms of managing the risk in the financial services sector.
The concerns which are being raised by Honorable RBI Governor relating to the growth in the unsecured loan in the system, I think to that extent, this effort is to ensure that the system stays insulated from any potential risk. It will have an impact of about 30 basis point on our, as far as the capital adequacy is concerned. It will consume more capital. I would say that when it comes to the healthy consumption, it will not have any major impact.
This will certainly have an impact on the profitability, and hence how much of this increase in price will be able to pass on to the customer. Because if you can't reprice your loan going forward, perhaps the impact of this increase of additional capital will certainly have an impact on the ROEs of the financial institutions.
Well, here's the other big story this evening. The Punjab and Haryana High Court has struck down the Haryana government law mandating 75% reservation in the private sector for locals. Now, the court has said that the law mandating reservation is unconstitutional and violates Part 3 of the Indian Constitution. Haryana government is likely to appeal this judgment, however, before the top court, the Supreme Court. The law was passed in 2020 and provided for 75% reservation for jobs with monthly salary of lower than 30,000 rupees. And well, to take this discussion ahead, I'm now joined by Mr. J.N. Mangla, former president and current member of the Gurgaon Industrial Association. Mr. Mangla, thank you so much for joining us. आपसे पहला सवाल, पंजाब और हरियाणा हाई कोर्ट ने साफ तौर पे कहा है कि ये एक तरीके की नेगेटिव डिस्क्रिमिनेशन है अगेंस्ट पीपल जो बाकी देश के बाकी हिस्सों से आए हैं. इसको नेगेटिव डिस्क्रिमिनेशन कहा है पंजाब और हरियाणा हाई कोर्ट ने, और साथ में ये भी कहा है कि इस तरीके से जो स्टेट है, जो स्टेट गवर्नमेंट है, वो प्राइवेट सेक्टर पे ऐसा बर्डन नहीं डाल सकता रिजर्वेशन का सिर्फ लोकल्स के फेवर में. इस समय डज दिस विंडिकेट योर पोजीशन? आपकी क्या राय है, लोकल इंडस्ट्री की क्या राय है इस हाई कोर्ट जजमेंट पे?
देखिए, जो पंजाब एंड हरियाणा का जो फैसला है, इसमें इंडस्ट्रीज की पूरे हरियाणा प्रदेश में खुशी की लहर है. इसका इनिशिएटिव गुड़गांव इंडस्ट्रियल एसोसिएशन ने, जब हरियाणा सरकार ने इसका रिजर्वेशन का कोटा लागू किया था, उस वक्त काफी तकलीफ थी इंडस्ट्रीज को, और इसी कारण से कि गुड़गांव इंडस्ट्रियल एसोसिएशन पंजाब एंड हरियाणा कोर्ट में फर्स्ट पिटीशनर रहा है. उसके बाद पंजाब हरियाणा हाई कोर्ट ने उसको स्टे किया, और उस स्टे के अगेंस्ट हरियाणा सरकार सुप्रीम कोर्ट में चली गई थी। सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने दोबारा से उसको रिवर्ट किया पंजाब एंड हरियाणा हाई कोर्ट को कि आप दोबारा इनकी बातों को सुने, इंडस्ट्री को सुने कि किस प्रकार से हम इसको लागू करें या ना करें। आज का जो फैसला आया है ये बहुत ही एक अच्छा फैसला है, क्योंकि इंडस्ट्रीज के अंदर अगर उसको फ्री हैंड नहीं दिया जाएगा, इंडस्ट्री चाहती है कि मेरिट के हिसाब से एम्प्लॉयमेंट हो। अगर उस पर कंडीशन लगाएगी, और कोई भी कोर्ट, कोई भी स्टेट इस तरह डेवलप नहीं कर सकती जब तक उसको फ्री हैंड ना दिया जाए। जहां इंडस्ट्री होगी किसी भी स्टेट में, इंडस्ट्री होगी तो उसका डेवलपमेंट होगा, ऑटोमेटिकली एम्प्लॉयमेंट होगा। और ऐसा इंडस्ट्री चाहती भी है कि हरियाणा प्रदेश के लोगों को एम्प्लॉयमेंट दी जाए, लेकिन ये शर्त लगाना, ये कंडीशन लगाना वो बिल्कुल वाजिब नहीं है। उसको मेरिट के हिसाब से ही एम्प्लॉयमेंट देना होता है। हम इंडस्ट्री चाहती है कि हरियाणा को प्रेफरेंस दे, लेकिन अगर वहां से मेरिट के हिसाब से कोई भी हमारे पास एम्प्लॉयमेंट, कोई भी वर्कर या कोई भी कैंडिडेट नहीं आता है, तो हमें फ्री हैंड होना चाहिए कि हम किसी भी स्टेट का हम लोग एम्प्लॉयमेंट उसको दे सकें। ये बहुत जरूरी था इंडस्ट्री के लिए।
जी मिस्टर
और
मंगला।
इंडस्ट्री का जो आज का जो फैसला है हरियाणा पंजाब हरियाणा हाई कोर्ट का, वो बहुत अच्छा है। और सभी लोग इसको अच्छा समझ के खुशी की लहर
जी
हमारे इंडस्ट्री में है। तो
जी
हम ये
मंगला
चाहते
जी, मैं
हैं।
एक हाई कोर्ट के जी जी मंगला जी, मैं इस हाई कोर्ट के फैसले का एक पार्ट पे गौर फरमाना चाहूंगा। एक पार्ट में पंजाब एंड हरियाणा हाई कोर्ट ने साफ तौर पे कहा है कि ऐसी नेगेटिव डिस्क्रिमिनेशन अगर की गई बेसिस कि एक पर्सन का कहां से ओरिजिन है, तो उससे एक आर्टिफिशियल बॉर्डर, आर्टिफिशियल बैरियर्स खड़े हो जाएंगे। इसका इफेक्ट हरियाणा पे भी पड़ेगा। कल को हरियाणा का अगर लेबर जाना चाहेगा महाराष्ट्र में और वहां पे अगर ऐसा लेजिस्लेशन रहा, मेरा आपसे सवाल यह है कि इस पंजाब एंड हरियाणा हाईकोर्ट के फैसले से क्या बाकी स्टेट्स को भी एक तरीके से गाइडेंस मिलेगी कि इस तरीके की लेजिस्लेशन शायद कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनली सस्टेनेबल ना हो?
ये देखिए, हमारी व्यू में तो ये एक मैसेज अच्छा है कि किसी भी स्टेट में कोई भी इंडस्ट्री है, वो चाहती है कि अपनी स्टेट के लोगों को रोजगार दिया जाए। इसमें कोई अच्छी बात है, बुरी बात नहीं है। लेकिन बशर्ते कि अगर हमें कोई कैंडिडेट अच्छे मिलते हैं मेरिट के हिसाब से, मैंने पहले भी कहा इसमें रखने में प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, लेकिन कोई उनको बाधा, उसको बंदिश करना, उसके ऊपर ये कंट्रोल करना कि नहीं आपको रखना पड़ेगा, वो कैसा भी आदमी है, कैसा भी उसका लेवल है, वो रखना हमारे लिए ठीक नहीं है। और ये 2020 में जो रिजर्वेशन का जो कानून पास हुआ था, इसके अगेंस्ट पहले से ही हरियाणा के इंडस्ट्री को ये चिंता रही है कि ये इंडस्ट्री के ऊपर थोपना, इससे क्या होगा, इंडस्ट्री बाहर जाने की इच्छुक हो गई थी।
जी
हर इंडस्ट्री ये चाह रही थी कि हम इस प्रकार की
जी
कंडीशन अगर लगेगी तो हम इसको शिफ्ट कर जाएंगे दूसरी स्टेट में। और ये एक अच्छा संदेश जा रहा है दूसरी स्टेट को भी कि वो स्टेट भी ऐसा ना करें, जिससे कि रिजर्वेशन ना करें, जिससे कि वहां की इंडस्ट्री को बाहर
श्योर।
जाना पड़े। हम चाहते हैं कि ये इंडस्ट्री यहाँ पर रहे और
राइट
इंडस्ट्री
मिस्टर
और आगे
मंगला।
फ्लरिश ही हो। वो फ्लरिश तभी हो सकती है जब उसको फ्री हैंड दिया जाए। ये मैं
राइट
कहना
मिस्टर
चाहता
मंगला।
हूँ।
Right, Mr. Mangla, thank you so much for your inputs and perspective. Important to point out here that this is a verdict falling from the Punjab and Haryana High Court. The Haryana government, we understand, is likely to challenge this before the Supreme Court. Mr. Mangla, thank you once again for joining us. But staying with courtroom action, the Delhi High Court, meanwhile, has stayed proceedings against Hero MotoCorp's chairman and managing director, Mr. Pavan Munjal. In a money laundering case, the court noted that the probe agency's proceedings needed to be stayed because the Director of Revenue Intelligence's complaint, which forms the basis of the investigation, had also been stayed earlier this month. The court also clarified that this stay is only with respect to Mr. Munjal and that the ED can continue its investigations on to the other matters. The case is now likely to be heard on 21st of March. Meanwhile, Bharat Pay co-founder Shnir Grover and his wife Madhuri Jain were stopped at the Delhi airport last night on the basis of a lookout circular against them. The duo was scheduled to travel to New York. Grover said that the summons came from the Economic Offences Wing, was delivered to him only this morning. Well, the big newsmaker this evening in his first television interview since taking over at ICICI Prudential, Anup Bagchi, says that the focus is purely on growth and he expects margins to stabilize at the current levels. Speaking to my colleague Yash Jain, Bagchi also said that he does not expect any new taxation on saving policies that could hurt demand. Take a look.
After that taxation, we have 5 lakhs remaining as far as the large savings policies is concerned, which is still not taxed, and 2.5 lakhs of ULIP. Do you see a threat of, let's say, a part of that 5 lakhs or 2.5 lakhs also coming under similar sort of taxation? Do you see that risk prevalent today, and what will be your view on that?
No, I would not say that there is a very large risk there, because see, we have to look at it from another angle. And the angle is that, see, if you look at government will always require long-term savings.
Correct.
Long-term issuance of bonds, because otherwise who is going to put money in infrastructure? Today, for long-term greater than 10 years, upwards of 2/3 of the demand comes from insurance
companies.
Type sectors.
Correct. Correct.
More than 2/3. And so, if you remove 5 lakhs, that's where the corpus is. If you remove 5 lakhs above, demand for it will come down.
Meanwhile, SoftBank is likely to have sold its 2.5% equity in logistics firm Delivery via a block deal. The deal is likely to be worth more than 700 crore rupees, and 1.8 crore shares have changed hands. As of September 2023, SoftBank held a 14.46% stake in the company. Shares of the company dipped on the back of this development. In global earnings, Walmart shares declined in trade after the retailer struck a cautious note on consumer spending. Walmart reported quarterly revenue of more than $160 billion at a growth rate of 5%. Profits crossed $450 million. Walmart's profits were boosted by Flipkart's Big Billion Days event. It added 32 basis points to the consolidated margins. Overall, e-commerce sales rose 15% on an annual basis. And China's Alibaba Group shed $20 billion in market value after scrapping plans to spin off and list its cloud unit. The company said that this is because of uncertainties arising from US export controls on chips used in artificial intelligence. Plans to list its free shipping groceries business have also been put on hold. From the Middle East, Israel continues to raid Gaza and West Bank more than a month after the Hamas attacks. Over 11,000 Palestinians have lost their lives in Gaza since the war broke out. The Israeli army has claimed to have killed at least 5 Palestinian gunmen and have captured 6 assault rifles in the Jenin camp in West Bank. Communication systems have been down for a second straight day due to a lack of fuel for generators. This has caused agencies to stop cross-border deliveries of essential supplies. The United Nations World Food Programme has flagged a massive food crisis in the Gaza Strip, warning that Gaza is experiencing a massive food gap and widespread hunger. In a statement, the organization said that civilians in the enclave are facing the immediate possibility of starvation. Well, it has been more than 120 hours since 40 workers have been trapped under a tunnel in Uttarkashi. Rescue workers have drilled up to 24 meters through the debris. Some workers have complained of mild headaches and nausea. However, officials have said that the workers are being provided with essential medicines and food. Network 18's Anshul Singh filed this report from Uttarkashi.
Since the last almost 24 hours, the drilling process has continuously been going on, and the rescuers have been successfully able to drill through at least 25 meters of debris. At this point in time, a team of experts have gone inside. In fact, a geophysical analysis of the entire debris is being done just to find out at what locations are these machines that are stuck inside the debris post that through sonar technology, what we are being told, that post that they would actually be able to find out as to what is the exact location where the machine is and how much of that machine needs to be drilled through. If I could just ask my camera person to show you in the visuals over here, the drilling process has come to an halt because steel has been encountered on the route, which means that it would now take a lot more time for the rescuers to actually dig through this entire tunnel and reach at the spot where the workers are.
Well, we'll continue to track that story, but coming up in just a bit, India Business Hour, a closing ceremony with the pop star Dua Lipa and an aerobatics show by the Indian Air Force await Indian cricket fans as India takes on Australia in the World Cup final this Sunday. All this and more in just a bit. And you can also catch all CNBC TV18's news and updates on WhatsApp, Facebook, X, Threads, Instagram, and JioCinema. Well, here's some election action. We are in the midst of polling season. All 230 seats in Madhya Pradesh went to polls today. While the BJP is betting big on the Ladli Behna scheme, the Congress has promised a corruption and unemployment-free Madhya Pradesh. Over 2,500 candidates, including parties and independents, are in the fray. There were reports of infighting within the Congress and the BJP in the run-up to the elections. The BJP, which is in power in the state, did not formally announce a chief ministerial candidate. And from Madhya Pradesh to Chhattisgarh, where polling took place for the remaining 70 out of the 90 seats, voting for the first phase of 20 seats was held on November 7th. Over 950 candidates are vying for entering the assembly. The second phase will decide the fate of sitting State Chief Minister Bhupesh Baghel, Deputy Chief Minister T.S. Singhdeo, and 8 other state cabinet ministers. Well, the stage is all set for what promises to be a cracker of a Cricket World Cup final. Two-time champions India will take on the 8-time winners Australia at the Narendra Modi Stadium in Ahmedabad. This Sunday, for starters, pop star Dua Lipa is likely to perform at the closing ceremony. Meanwhile, the Surya Kiran aerobatic team of the Indian Air Force is also likely to put up a show. CNBC TV18's Hormaz Fatakia gets us more on the big face-off on Sunday.
You know, it's almost shaping up like the climax of a masala Bollywood film, right? When the hero is reincarnated and he returns to take revenge on his oppressor after 20 years. That's the kind of build-up that Sunday's World Cup final is getting. It's being promoted as a grudge match. Now, I'll get to the 20-year context in a bit, but first let's take a look at the track record of both these teams in the World Cup final. Now, to show the kind of dominant force that Australia has been over the years, this is the 13th edition of the World Cup, and this will be Australia's 8th final. Now, in the 7 that they have played earlier, they've won 5 of them. Now, the 2 that they lost was back in 1975, which was the first edition, and in 1996, which was courtesy a completely mad innings by Arvinda de Silva. For India, this will be their 4th World Cup final. They were unlikely, unexpected winners in 1983, but well-deserved ones in 2011. The one that they lost was 2003, 20 years ago, against Australia. Those scars are still fresh in the hearts and minds of 10-year-old children like us who saw that game. Now, generally, Australia has been India's bugbear in a knockout match. Now, besides the 2003 final, India also lost the 2015 semi-final against Australia, which was in Sydney. However, they did win the 2011 quarter-final against Australia, which incidentally also happened in Ahmedabad. And that put an end to the 12-year undefeated juggernaut of Australia in World Cup games. Now, India did win the 2019 contest against Australia as well, but that was in the group stages. Now, speaking of the group stage, India also won the first game of this World Cup against Australia. They won by 6 wickets, and that got their campaign going. Now, how has India fared in a World Cup final? Well, as they say, it's a team sport, so no Indian has scored a century yet in a World Cup final. However, they hold the record for the highest run chase in a World Cup final, that is in 2011, and also defending the lowest total in a World Cup final, and that was 183, which they defended in 1983. Now, the closest an Indian has come to scoring 100 in a World Cup final was Gautam Gambhir when he made that match-winning 97. For Australia, though, Adam Gilchrist was the star. His 149 in 2007, incidentally, also happens to be the highest individual score in a World Cup final. Now, I dare say, but India is looking like a well-oiled machine currently. The batsmen are scoring runs, the bowlers are picking up wickets, Virat Kohli is leading the charts with over 700 runs, and nobody has scored that many in a World Cup. But Mohammad Shami has been a nightmare for the opposition. He's picked up 23 wickets at an average of just 9. Now, Australia's top order is doing well as well, with David Warner scoring over 500 runs. And Adam Zampa, the leg spinner, has had a tournament to remember himself. He's picked up 22 wickets of his own and is just 1 behind Mohammad Shami. Now, I spoke about Arvinda De Silva briefly, as his century was a standout performance in a World Cup final. But there have been other centurions as well, right from Clive Lloyd back in 1975 to Mahela Jayawardene in 2011. And interestingly, only Mahela Jayawardne's century is the only one in a World Cup final where the team lost. And just to take forward the point of team effort, only 2 bowlers have taken a 5-wicket haul in a World Cup final. And that is Gary Gilmore in 1975 and the big bird Joel Garner in 1979.
Right, Urmaz, thanks a lot for getting us all those numbers. But speaking of numbers, let's talk advertisement rates, advertisement spends. And for, well, unsold inventory, it has gone through the roof, the advertisement rates as well. Shilpa Ranipeta, in fact, now joins us for more on that. Shilpa, tell us, if I want to put an ad out in between of the India-Australia match, what will a 10-second slot cost me?
Well, the price that's being quoted right now is up to 35 lakh rupees for a 10-second slot. That's what the rates are going at the moment. That's what industry sources have told us. Now, while the prices we're told that is being quoted by Disney Star for a 10-second spot is anywhere between 30 to 35 lakhs, eventually this gets, negotiated down to settle anywhere between 25 to 30 lakh range, and this is for that 10-minute slot. Now, remember, there's very little inventory that's left. Sources say that about 10 to 15% of unsold inventory is only remaining for the final match. Now, this is for TV. When it comes to Disney Plus Hotstar, for the connected TV also, the rates have nearly doubled to about 8 to 10 lakh rupees for a 10-second slot. Whereas for digital, which would be the app or the website of Disney Plus Hotstar, there the going rate is about 500 to 600 rupees CPM, which is the cost per mile. And that is also nearly doubled as compared to the other matches we've seen. Now, remember, India has had an extremely successful run throughout the World Cup, and ad rates accordingly also have been much higher for India matches as compared to non-India matches, where it was almost 4 to 6 times more for India matches, and the pricing was actually 2.5 times more for semi-finals as compared to the playoffs. And now, data from industry analysts is saying that it will be 30% higher for the final match. So I don't know if you're ready to shell out about 35 lakh rupees for 10 seconds, but that's the going rate. Back to you.
I can't shell out 35 lakhs, but definitely some for a few snacks while I watch this match with the CNBC TV team. Shilpa, thanks a lot for joining us with that update. That's, of course, the big day, cracker of a final, just a few days away now, a couple of days away. The hopes and prayers of 1 billion plus people are with the men in blue. Of course, we'll be tuning in to watch that big World Cup final. But with that, it's a wrap on this edition of India Business Hour. Thank you so much for watching. News and updates continue right here on CNBC TV 18.